Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast. I have with me today a very special guest. Her name is Dr. Ashley Dwyer, and she is a pharmacist and a certified health coach like myself. So welcome to the show, Ashley.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Yes, I'm so happy to have you here. So I'd love to dive in and talk all about your very interesting business model, if I may say so myself. But before we get there, I would love to first start off with what started your pharmacy/health journey in the first place.
The pharmacy journey started, I think, I'm not sure of your direct school path, but pharmacy was kind of like right out of high school. It's like, I want to do health and like be in the healthcare industry, but not do a bajillion years of school, right?
Yep.
So I think I started on that pre-pharmacy track. It was in demand. Back when I graduated, there were still signing bonuses, and then I graduated and that wasn't the case anymore. But I started in that realm. And then just kind of throughout the last 10 years of my life through doing bodybuilding competitions and seeing that extreme, like unhealthiness versus healthy, and then going through my own health problems in my mid-20s, late 20s, it just shifted my whole perspective of Western medicine, holistic medicine. And I just found, retail pharmacy was where I was at. So it's not always fun there, I will say, or you don't always have the time to counsel patients how you'd like. So, that shifted me out of pharmacy, but to get in, it was I just want to help people and do it in this way.
Yeah, I hear that from a lot of guests here on the show. Is there anything in particular in your childhood or in your family that really drew you towards the health field? And where exactly did you grow up and where are you now?
So I am born and raised in South Florida. So now I'm in like Fort Lauderdale. I was born and raised in West Boca Deerfield. So if you're not familiar, it's very close. It's like 30 minutes away. So I'm still here.
Nice.
I love South Florida, except it's we currently have like crazy rain because it's summer and super hot. But no, honestly, nobody in my family is in the healthcare industry. Nobody is a doctor. No. So I don't know where it came from. I'm like the segue, right? I don't know.
Divinely inspired.
Yes.
Love it. Yeah. And, we just had some rain yesterday too, because it's been so hot. So I was like welcoming it so much. And finally today I was able to go on my balcony because I haven't been able to even peep outside the last couple of days.
So bad. Yeah. And you guys, I know it gets really hot up there too. You said Brooklyn, right? It gets very
Yes.
hot.
Yes, it does.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we just had a heat wave here. But anyway, let's get back to your story. So I'd love to know, as you were finishing pharmacy school, what led you to go to retail? And then what have you been discovering along your health journey and to continue your training in the health field after that?
Yeah. So after pharmacy school, we have the choice of residencies and all of that. And I kind of already knew I wanted to work with people. Like I had the outgoing personality. I didn't like the hospital rotations, even though, you can be good at them. I like the clinical aspect sometimes, but I didn't want to work in a hospital. So I did retail. And then shortly after being in retail for a while, you realize that it's taxing. It takes a toll on you. The long hours, the not really having enough help. So I switched companies. Like I used to work for Walgreens was my first one. And then I went to Publix. You guys don't have Publixes where you are, but it's a grocery chain down here. And it was a little better, but it's still the same issues, right? So it's just not really what I wanted to do. I took a passion and I started working with functional medicine doctors myself. And I was like, ooh, I love this. I love like going for the core issue. I love solving the core problem instead of treating the symptoms, right? And in the pharmacy, we're kind of just handing out Band-Aids for a lot of symptoms all day when we could really just change diet and lifestyle. So that shifted my like aha moment, and then just further took health coaching exams and things like that to get more knowledge. Because to be honest, in pharmacy, we're not really taught nutrition. We're not taught any of that. So I really wanted to dive in deeper and figure out how to even become a functional medicine practitioner. And I was like, all right, 4 more years of school, maybe not. Maybe not.
Yeah, that's another common path that people go down on. And yeah, I think I speak to a lot of pharmacists that feel the same way about, dispensing these Band-Aids. And of course, sometimes they're necessary,
right,
and life-saving, and it's a blessing to have them, but also to be judicious about when they're really necessary and when can we support other ways, and especially if we can get to the root cause or the more upstream target versus just the symptom level, because otherwise it's not really serving the person. And we make the assumption that the person is not willing to do the lifestyle and the dietary changes. So we kind of just wave our hands up and don't even tell them about these options. And nor are we really taught in school, like you said. Not even MDs get a lot of hours in nutrition. They get like a few credits at most. So it's a really interesting thing that we're skipping over the whole foundation of health. And of course, I could harp on about how it's systemic and how, the access to good food is challenging, let alone, the knowledge of what to eat. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, it's a huge problem all around. That could be a whole episode on its own, right? The systemic of Western healthcare. But yeah, and I just didn't, like, the Band-Aid approach didn't work for me, right? And like, just to give a little brief thing, I had a thyroid issue going on, but it was because of my lifestyle choices that I gave it to myself almost. It wasn't hereditary or Hashimoto's, but I was given medication right away instead of fixing these lifestyle changes. And now I'm kind of stuck on that medication. And I don't want to be on it forever, but it's very hard to get off once you're on it. So I wish I would have had someone who was there and been like, we could do this instead.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do for others. Yeah.
Absolutely. So where do you see health coaching fit into the whole grand scheme? And I know you mentioned one of the reasons you went into it is it was just like a shorter path, but is there anything that you're really passionate about when it comes to health coaching, or any advice you have for people that are considering getting health coaching as far as what program and what are the benefits?
So health coaching was just kind of not the easiest path, because I don't want to say that I took like the easy way out, but it is a good umbrella to get you moving in that direction to be certified, where it teaches you like, not like fitness in a general sense. It teaches you nutrition in a general sense. And then I went on to get further certifications in other avenues for deeper understanding. But health coaching has a great place because, unlike your doctor's office where you see them once a year, once every 3 months, like maybe once a month, I doubt it highly that any insurance will even cover that, right? You're working with someone who literally has you for feedback and results every week, sometimes every day. So you're getting a really high touch environment where you don't get that from a doctor's office or even a nutritionist or a dietitian in regular Western practice. Now, I know some dietitians and nutritionists who've sectioned off and also done their own private coaching and consulting like what I'm doing. So it's just like, I kind of tell clients when we're on the phone to sign up for a program, like it's meant to be a semester of school almost, because these programs, the shortest we do is 12 weeks. And so you're coming in, you're essentially paying someone to keep you accountable, help you with your struggles, also get you over certain hurdles. And we can go into that in a minute, but also learn things that you didn't know. So you don't know what you don't know. And we do macro counting. So if you don't know macros, having a coach to teach you all about macros in 3 or 4 weeks instead of researching it and trial and error on your own, like I would rather just have someone show me real quick, because time is more valuable to me, right? So you have someone there who can do all of these things for you and do custom protocols for you, where you don't get that from a doctor's office at all. Hardly even functional medicine can follow up with you that much, right? Like not even daily. So that's where I think the difference is and where it fits in. Hopefully, not all health coaches are holistic, and not all health coaches are actually certified either. I could go into that in another topic, but I like the little area where we fit into, the holistic area.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So follow-up questions from that. Where did you get certified? Was it tied to the program that you took, or is there a specific exam that you sought out after you got trained?
So I did the certified health coaching through ACE. So I think it's American Council of Exercise. They were like very highly accredited. So I did their health coaching program. And then throughout the years, I've found other programs that I've sought out. So like plant-based nutrition, even though we're not plant-based or vegetarian, but to have that knowledge, I wanted it through eCornell. So like their online program. I've done another functional nutrition and metabolism science certification, because that's what we do, is mostly metabolism. And I'm going to do like a pre and postnatal one coming up the end of this year, just to help more clients out and be able to really help postpartum moms and pregnant women. But it's just whatever, like I like to still constantly learn and constantly grow and become more knowledgeable in the space. So whatever I can find that what fits that niche, I want to do it. Sign me up.
Yeah, I love it. I want to touch on something that you mentioned about time and money. So I consider those two to be our biggest resources, right? And also energy, like, the quality of energy that you do something with is also different. So those three I consider our top most available resources that we can combine in different sort of permutations and combinations and levels to get an outcome or a result. So we can spend more time if we want to research everything ourselves. But like you said, not all the answers are even in your doctor's office, and it's definitely not all on Google. Right. So it does, really save a lot of time and energy if you actually go directly to the source and get the coaching. Plus you're getting the accountability built in, because many people do struggle with, okay, now I think I know what to do, but how does it actually fit into my life? And then it just ends up not being done. So it's like, I find myself doing that sometimes too. Like I know all the herbal protocols, but sometimes I just don't do them. And then I'm like, oh, that's why it didn't work.
Yeah. So do you have your own like accountability partner or coach?
Yes, I do. I invest in my own coaches all the time.
I was going to say, I have two coaches right now. I have a health coach holding me accountable, even though I know what to do, right? Like you just said. And then I have a business coach, because nobody teaches you. We didn't go to business school. We went to pharmacy school. So having someone show me the quick route is way well worth it to me.
Yes, I have a business consultant, and I have I guess, an emotional healing coach is what I have right now.
That.
Yes.
I love that.
So
I'm one of those.
I could send you, their contact if you're interested. But yeah, I'm always doing like self-care and self-development, self-help. I think it's really, really important. So I also want to go back to you and the populations that you serve. So how did you start carving out a niche for yourself and building out these, 12-week plus programs?
So I think like anyone, like when I look back at how my business started and what I originally did, I was like, I had no idea what I was doing. But at the time I was like, no, this is great.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked both jobs for 2 years. So I did pharmacy and my company for 2 years before I finally quit pharmacy. And I started with brides and grooms, to be honest. Like my company name was called the Big Day Nutrition, because we worked with people for big days, like weddings all the time. And that started because I was just helping my girlfriends get ready for their wedding. Like when you're 27, 28, everyone's getting married, right? Like, I think I had 9 weddings one year. So that's how it kind of started. And then working with people for free, and then, $50 a month, and you build up. And then I hired my first business coach, who was like, nah, we need to do this. And they kind of built me out some structure, which I loved. And then I started charging actually what I should for my time. And then as I was doing it, I was like, you know what? The common struggle I'm hearing, like the common thing I'm hearing, like I didn't just want to work with brides and grooms anymore. Even in the wedding industry, I shifted somewhere into women and then into like metabolically adapted cases. Like I will say 95% of the clients that we work with have been under eating forever. Like never actually eaten what they've needed to eat, never touched 2000 calories, but don't understand why they can't lose weight, or have hypothyroid or PCOS or something like that, where we can shift lifestyle changes. So I found the demand for it and then realized this is what we're good at and I like doing it. So just kind of shifted into that. And now that's where I am 3.5 years later. So I anticipate it'll still continue shifting. But that's how the niche came. I followed the natural curve of where it led me.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for walking us through the name.
I was like, is that a boring answer? I don't know.
No, I love it. I love that you explained the name of your company because now it makes sense to me. I was like, oh, the big day, I get it.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a need, for people to look good on the big day. And I know some aspect of what you do, as you mentioned with the macros metabolism, is, restructuring one's body and optimizing their muscle mass versus fat mass, I'm assuming. So that is definitely something that is so needed. We live in such an obese country, let's just say that. And we also have the highest rates of mortality from cardiovascular disease. So all of these things, and diabetes is rampant, and gestational diabetes as well. So all the things that you touched on is exactly what is affecting all of us that live here in the modern Western world, and more specifically in America. So you could have all the luxuries and access to food, as we were mentioning, but all of that is most of that is just empty calories, unfortunately. So we need to be getting the nutrient density in.
And it's hard to shift lifestyles like that too. And I actually made like a post on Instagram today about, because I don't know if you've seen some of the new programs on TV are using Ozempic or using Rybelsus and things like that. Like they're giving them that medication. Yeah. And I was like, no, like we're not shifting any behaviors though. Like it's kind of like a juiced up, well, it's not like phentermine, but the phentermine craze too. So it's just, I don't know. To me, it's kind of like the easy button. Like you said, I definitely agree. There are certain people who could 100% benefit from it. But then there are other people who like, we need to do this deep dive instead. Like we need to spend some time reformulating habits and lifestyles, and then we'll be good forever and not just the 3 months that we're taking the medication, right?
Yeah, I think what I found personally and professionally as I do this work is that it all comes down to what you're willing to do and how you're willing to combine your time, money, and energy resources in order to get the outcome that you want. Because, some people don't realize or recognize that they're not positioned in a great spot and they're at more of a risk for escalating medications and worsening disease states unless they go and address the foundation. So there's a level of awareness and education, number one. And then number two, understanding that sometimes a pill seems like the easy way out, but often it's not really that easy and it comes with drawbacks and side effects. So again, it's like making that educated choice for yourself once you know what we know as pharmacists, and then what you're willing to do. And sometimes it's a combination approach where, yes, some medications may have to be on board, but, even for these new indications of these, injectable medications for diabetes that now is marketed for weight loss, most of them are not going to be covered for that indication for insurances. So people are going to have to be willing to pay the price tag. And for some people, that is the easy way out, so everybody has to make that decision. And we do have that availability now, but, we need to be able to support those people that are willing to do it differently and are wanting to do it differently.
I was going to say, I was thinking of that. I'm like, oh, the cash price for injectables versus like, even with the cash price of phentermine, that's not going to be any joke. That's going to be a lot.
Yep. That's a huge difference.
And I like what you said too, about like, the thing that I find like about the foundations and kind of the people who want to do it, like what you're willing to do. And I find though, or do you find also that sometimes it takes people to like not hit rock bottom, but get that diagnosis or get that bad blood work back or something to where they finally start taking things seriously. And I would love if we could just avoid that completely, right? Like that would be an ideal world. But sometimes it takes like that scary, like a heart attack, or it takes like the diabetes diagnosis or something like that before we really like shift that thought process of like, this won't ever happen to me and this is happening to me, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And us being pharmacists and seeing and dispensing all these things, I was in the retail setting for a long time as well. So I think that really speaks volumes about why we're leading this movement and this lifestyle and have been supporting people through making the lifestyle changes and doing the work, is because we see the need for it and we want them not to hit the rock bottom, right? So we have that level of awareness because of our job, because we've been informed and we see how often we have to dispense certain medications and how many medications a given person is taking. So that, that makes it real for us, right? Even if it's not us, it's real because it's our patients and we see it on a daily basis. And so those people that are not aware are just not going to understand, how rampant it is and how willing people are, seemingly willing to put up with the diagnosis and put up with the drug because they're not aware of these other options and the choices, because there's not enough time to educate them in the doctor's office, etc. So that's the crux of the issue. But having been on that side of things and being in that allopathic model is also informing us of the other side is possible. And we are choosing to invest our time and energy in this side of the equation.
The best side. I hope this side will eventually be covered by insurance too, because that would make more people interested in it, right? Like even functional medicine doctors aren't covered by insurance. So it can get pretty costly. And unfortunately, working with anyone one-on-one, whether it's a consultant, a lawyer, a health coach, a business coach, it's not going to be cheap because you're getting that quality certified, like education, background, experience all in one. So trying to make it more affordable would be amazing as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the drivers in the allied industry is the payer, right? So the payer has a say of what they're covering under formulary and what's not covered and all these things. Because there's a study or because there's this cost effectiveness thing, even though it may not be the best solution for the patient, it is what they've determined is on their formulary. So, you're kind of stuck with it unless you want to pay out of pocket. So it just all comes back to the choice and what is worth it for you and what's worth fighting for, what's worth advocating for. And I do see a world where I already see some third-party payers paying for certain things or giving flexible spending money, like all those FSA and HSA cards that are actually being used for services like coaching, acupuncture, gym memberships even.
Gym memberships I've seen, yeah.
Yeah, so I do see a world where we are shifting things. So I am optimistic.
I know, yay.
But I want to go back to your story and your business. And so I want to know, how did you start designing, these programs, these macro counting, and, how were you able to track people's results and understand that, hey, this is my niche, I'm good at that. And then also, how were you able to build a sustainable business that you could work full time from?
Lots of hours, lots of late nights too. So I found coaches in the industry who I also wanted to emulate, right? Like I really liked this model and I was like, ooh, I want to do that, right? Like they're actually helping people do what I want to do. that's what I want to do. And so you start out with just the typical like exercise plans and meal plans. And, you know, in Florida, if you're not a nutritionist or a dietitian, you can't write meal plans. So we don't do meal plans. So we can do like the macro, I can't even speak today. We could do like macro calculations, but it's like a fine line, right? And I like macros because I'm super analytical and I love the data. So like that's my preference anyway. And I feel like for most clients, I understand the give and take of tracking and weighing food. To some, it's like extremely disordered, right? Like we don't want you to weigh your food. We don't want you to track everything you're eating. But on the opposite end, or the argument to that is, we're not ever asking someone to track forever. Like it's a tool that you can use on any diet, right? Like people use macros for keto and for Whole30 and things like that. So it's just a tool to monitor your intake, to bring self-awareness to, oh, I had no idea this food had these nutrient components, right? Or how to build a proper plate of food without just using like the plate method, but actually seeing what you're eating and how many ounces of protein, what it looks like, and kind of using your hands for portion sizes and things like that. So just bringing an awareness to how much you actually need to eat. Because as I said earlier, most women, I mean, men too, kind of, but we undereat. We always undereat. So the majority of our clients, we have to slowly bring up calorically. And the easiest way to do that is through numbers with macros and making sure they're getting in enough protein, and then making sure we're keeping carbs and fat, you know, in a certain range for that specific client. And so that's the best way I've found for data-driven results and for really precise, efficient results. And then, you know, when a client's done working with us or they're coming up at the end of their plan, if they want to switch to more intuitive eating, we kind of like, we'll ship them off of macros. But that's how like macros got started. And I love it. Like we used to be known as just like the macro coach. And now I'm trying to shift more into the metabolism coach because you know, no matter what, if your insides aren't working properly, you're not going to get results on the outside. So it's really just making sure everything else is optimized. But building out these plans came with just experience. Like, okay, 8 weeks is not long enough. Like, it actually takes 66 days to make or break a habit, not 21. So 8 weeks is just getting them there. So 12 weeks, we'll do 12 weeks as the minimum. And then we kind of just shift off of what the protocols look like how we need to adjust has all come from biofeedback experience, my own research. Like I like to keep up with articles and podcasts. So just constantly learning. And it's just, that's why I said like the price you pay for someone might not be because of maybe the service that they're giving you, right? But it's their knowledge. So nobody can adjust or do protocols like I can specifically. Like even my assistant coaches, we're all trained under the same method, but they might have a gut feeling to shift one way that's different than mine. So it comes with like a lot of experience and practice. And then biofeedback, you see how the client responds and you're like, it's not so good. Let's do this.
Yeah, so I'd love to dive into, if you could explain to like a fourth grader, what is macro calorie counting? Yeah. So explain that concept and why you chose this specifically as like your number one tool.
So macros are essentially like, let's like break it down like a fourth grader. So we've all heard of tracking calories, right? Everyone knows what a calorie is. It's easier to do on food labels. So we've heard of tracking calories, but if we gave someone a calorie amount to eat every day, like 1,500 calories a day, most people will load that with fat and carbs. It won't be a balanced distribution. It'll be mostly what people gravitate towards, which is usually fat and carbs, as opposed to 1,500 calories of macros. And so macros are the building blocks of calories. So proteins, carbs, and fats. So proteins are 4 calories per gram, carbs are 4 calories per gram, and fat is 9 calories per gram. So we give you certain numbers to make up a total calorie intake. And then you're not focused on calories anymore. You're simply focused on hitting the numbers of those proteins, carbs, and fats every day. And whatever you can eat to hit those numbers, you're kind of golden. So that ensures that if we give you 1,500 calories, you're at least going to get in 120 grams of protein. right? Which is going to be super important, as opposed to the person tracking calories who might get in 50 grams of protein. So that's why we do macros, is so it can be super specific and tailored to your goals. It's my fave.
So I've heard, like a calorie is a calorie, but that's been disproven, right? So the source of the calorie is what you're saying is really going to be important.
Yeah. Yeah. So for example, a carb calorie is digested completely different than a protein calorie, than a fat calorie. And like a protein, which most women too, and I speak to women because that's generally who we work with, but we don't get in enough protein per day. And protein is the most thermodynamic macro, meaning your body burns more calories digesting it. So women should just be like eating all the protein. It's also usually not stored as body fat. I mean, in complete excess of caloric intake, maybe, but very rarely. So it's something that we want to hit every day and make sure we're getting for proper hair and nails, like enzymatic activity, our immune system. If women want good hair and nails, like make sure you're getting in good protein. I promise. No more biotin.
Yeah, and also it supports the liver, like all those amino acids that we need for antioxidant activity and detox pathways. It's like we learned that, okay, we can't just demonize one type of food, one type of macro or micronutrient. We can't like exalt one type and demonize another. They're all there to meet our human needs of all the processes that go on. So like, if we were to sum up all the processes that are necessary to keep us alive and healthy, we would come to the conclusion that actually, yes, we do need a variety of diverse, whole, good quality food, including adequate protein is really important. And like you said, it's, I also think that women in particular undereat it. And do you find that women who do not eat animal products in particular suffer from this, or what do you see in practice?
To be honest, I see it all over. Like not even the ones who eat chicken or eat animal protein still aren't getting in a lot, because they'll even eat like a 2-ounce piece and think that's sufficient. And they'll have maybe like an egg for breakfast, right? So they're still eating protein, but very small quantities. So they're still getting in 60 grams. If we do have a vegetarian or a vegan client, like sometimes they're even eating more protein than meat eaters because they know they have to focus on it in their diets, like beans and quinoa and seeds and nuts, right? So they're actually paying attention a little bit more than meat eaters. So it's kind of interesting. It might be swapped.
That is interesting. And I also would expect that actually people aren't getting enough fat either, because fat has been demonized for so long. Like, what have you seen?
So I will definitely be honest, fat is not demonized in our group. Before they start working with us, we make every client do a 3-day log to see what they're already eating before we begin working with them. And fat is always high because people gravitate towards like the feel-good comfort foods, which are very fatty. And we don't measure it out properly. So I would only say the really, really strict, like almost competitor style people, because I know when I was competing, my fats were like 20 grams a day. It was nothing. It was not enough for hormone health, much less brain activity.
Right.
So fat is not something I see demonized so much. What I do, and I wanted to say this earlier too, why we also do macros aside from protein is because carbs are almost always demonized. Carbs are always the first thing to be eliminated when someone wants to lose weight. So with macros, it's like, here, you can have carbs. Like you're allowed to have carbs and they're not going to be bad. Huh? Yeah. Like eat them, because the problem is, like you said, every one of these macros has a function in the body that it's needed for. And when we're cutting out carbohydrates, we're essentially also cutting out all fiber. And fiber is so crucial to digestion, blood sugar, everything. So without fiber, like good luck getting a sustainable plan, right? So we focus on fiber as like our 4th macro. It's not a macro, but our 4th tracking.
Yeah, love it. Love it. So from a practical standpoint, walk us through what it is like to track your macros because like we were mentioning before, usually when you're eating a whole food, it has a bunch of macros. Well, maybe it's a one major macro, but a bunch of micronutrients and a bunch of other things. So is there like an app that breaks down and counts it towards wherever it belongs versus us having to figure that out the old fashioned way?
Oh my gosh, if we had to do this the old fashioned way, I wouldn't be doing macros, I'll tell you that. So yes, we track on an app. You do have to weigh out food. And if you are listening and you do already track macros or you're interested in macros, like what we do now to measure food is usually cups and tablespoons and very like subjective measuring. And I call it subjective because depending on like what the vegetable is, depending on what the food is, it'll take up more density in a cup than say like a cup of broccoli is not going to be a cup of carrots. Like there's space, there's things that are going to be weird in there. So we weigh everything out on a food scale and we track it in grams or ounces. And then we put it into an app, and the app that we use is called MyFitnessPal. We have our clients use the free version unless they want to use the paid version, but it's not necessary. And you can scan labels. You can like type in and use the green verified sources so you know it like makes sense because it'll have a bunch of entries in there. You can create recipes if you're making like a food, like a dish for the whole family, and then portion that out. So it makes it easy and it counts it all up for you so that you know where you're at for the day and then how much you have left. So you do have to enter it into an app, and it takes practice, but you know, maybe the first time you're tracking, the first couple of weeks, it takes you like 10 minutes a day to log, and then you get really good at it and it takes you less than 2 minutes. So it just becomes like second nature.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it does sound a little bit difficult at first, but yeah, I could imagine it. You can get used to it once you figure the app out and the scale and all
There's
of
a
that.
learning curve. There's a learning curve. We try and walk them through it. We've made resources.
Yeah, that's what comes to mind when we were talking about what are you willing to do, what amount of work are you willing to commit to, and so setting those expectations I think is important too. So when they know what they're signing up for, and you mentioned that it takes at least 66 days, at least 8 to 12 weeks to actually build that habit that's going to be good for them. So when do you start seeing like positive changes, and what are the first like positive changes that you notice happen with your clients?
So the way that our program is set up, a lot of clients already start seeing progress within the first week or two, just because they're eating better foods. They're actually eating like breakfast, right? They're not skipping meals. We're doing 3 meals a day and 2 snacks. They're getting more water in because they're paying attention to it. So they already start to feel like less bloated, more energy. We're eating vegetables. We love vegetables. So we go on that route and they start to see success there. And then my favorite victories, well, I know clients love the scale goals too, like when you lose weight, like yes, but I love the like PRs in the gym. Like I love the getting stronger goals. I love the my pants are too big and I have to go shopping goals. The like I played outside with my kids for the whole hour tonight. Like we call them NSVs. I like the non-scale victories.
I love it. So how do you track those, and what are like the most surprising, wins that you've noticed among clients?
Surprisingly, I mean, how we track them is we just have them pay attention. They'll tell us. We do weekly check-ins with our clients too, so we go over all their data and everything once a week. But the surprise, I don't know, surprising. It's just my favorite when someone who used to like maybe get really emotional and eat a whole thing of ice cream, like now has turned to going for a walk, or doesn't even have the desire to binge on sweets anymore, or those kind of things are really big to me, because then it's like, okay, I know we're making like lifelong shifts and we're creating better habits, and we're creating that mental mind shift block. So I like those. I'm trying to think of surprising, but I don't know if anything's surprising. Do you have surprising ones? Like, what are examples?
Yeah, I don't know, just something that like we were talking about weight loss a lot and metabolic health, playing with the kids, like you mentioned, like anything that you wouldn't like really expect it to be a goal, but you end up having a win there.
Well, we've definitely gotten clients off of medication with the help of their doctor. Like I've emailed endocrinologists back and forth before because, as you know, like as a pharmacist, I've had clients lose weight and the doctors are jacking up their insulin dose. And I was like, well, wait a minute, like he's complaining of hypoglycemia. Like we need to, so sometimes we've worked with doctors and gotten clients off of like PPIs and certain other things that they might not need because we're working on gut health. So those are cool wins when we can do that. It's not expected. That's not the goal of the program, but it's very cool. And then we've had some clients actually turn into health coaches themselves because they've just loved it so much too. So those are also surprising changes and wins.
Yeah, I love that. I love when there's like unexpected side effects, right? But positive ones that you maybe didn't really set a goal for, but they just happen. And then you turn around and you're like, wow, I can't believe like, I'm feeling so much happier. And like you said, I'm not eating the ice cream, not reaching for it. So
Yeah.
I think that is like a really rewarding and sometimes potentially surprising side effect. And congratulations on, all the other wins you just mentioned with getting patients off meds. I always think that's great when we could take away the crutch or the Band-Aid and the body function like starts returning to supporting the body versus like needing the medication or the exogenous compound, the hormone or whatever, because it's
Definitely.
missing.
Yeah.
So just a couple more clinical questions, then I want to get back into business, and then we have our rapid fire round. So
Ooh.
from clinical, I would love to know what is some of the ways that you heal the gut that has allowed you to, again, maybe transition off PPIs, for example, proton pump inhibitors, which suppress acid, in case our audience is not familiar with that term.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've done is obviously a big dietary shift. And that's what not many people want to hear, right? It's like, well, you have to clean up your diet a little. And this is why we're having the acidic issues we're having. So definitely cleaning up the diet, more anti-inflammatory foods, more veggies, things like that, more antioxidants. Sometimes doing a shot of apple cider vinegar in the morning to like get the acid going. Because for those, not to use apple cider vinegar as a weight loss supplement, I definitely do not support that. But when, for listeners who don't know, sometimes having acid reflux is because you don't actually have enough acid in your stomach. And so then you overshoot. So providing your stomach with acid like apple cider vinegar will actually allow it to function a little better. So you don't need the PPI and you don't overshoot. So we'll do that. We've done like supplements for like bone broth. We've done L-glutamine powder, collagen. Just depends on like the client. Obviously avoiding like citrusy stuff for a while, or alcohol, coffee, things like that. Not having any coffee or alcohol in an empty stomach. So little shifts like that, bringing down stress, have been really successful in cleaning up like PPI usage.
Love that. I think I'm definitely on board with all of those. Plus I use herbal bitters as another way to
Oh yeah. Bitters are great. Yeah.
to stimulate the downward peristalsis and the movement, and the acid going to the right direction, not up but down.
Yes.
And then I just also wanted to mention about the alcohol, for example, like what is your stance on alcohol intake in general in these programs, and and also on meat, right? There's the carnivore diet and also intermittent fasting, because you mentioned you definitely want to make sure not to skip breakfast. So what are your thoughts on all these kind of controversial things?
Okay. So what was the first one? Alcohol. So we don't discourage alcohol in our program because it's your lifestyle. We need to find something that works for your lifestyle. And if you like to go out to dinner and have 2 glasses of wine on the weekend or something like that, like we need to figure out how to make it fit your lifestyle. Obviously, if you eliminate it, you'll have better results. But with macros, you track alcohol like you would a food. Like alcohol doesn't really have calories or macros per se. So what we do is we divide like the total calorie amount of that alcoholic beverage you're having by 4 for carbs or 9 for fat. And it puts things into perspective, because using something really simple like a White Claw, it's 100 calories. But on the can, it says 2 grams of carbs. But we know calorically now through math, that would mean it should be 8 calories. right? So where are those empty calories going? So instead, in our program, we divide 100 calories by 4, and now it's 25 grams of carbs. So if you're going to have a White Claw, it's kind of like, do I want bread or do I want a White Claw? So it makes them more mindful of their choices. And, some days you go with the wine, some days you go with more pasta. It just depends on what kind of day you're having. But that's where we keep it a little more mindful with alcohol. So not discourage it, but make more mindful choices. Like that margarita that's 400 calories, probably not going to be the best idea. And then
I would definitely classify it closer to the carb, because it does break down into sugars.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we do either macro for whatever fits, but like carbs is usually depending on the alcohol. Like you'll do the mixer separately, so all sweet and sour mix is going to be sugar.
Right.
So carnivore, I think, is ridiculous because again, there's no fiber, there's no vegetables, there's no nutrients. I'm not shaming on meat at all. Like I'm a big meat eater. We promote meat. Obviously, I prefer more grass-fed and free range and wild caught sources of protein. But nothing against that. Just not really a fan of carnivore. I don't really think it's sustainable for most people. And then intermittent fasting, that could be a podcast episode on its own. I don't encourage it for women. I don't. I've seen so many negative side effects with hormones and stress. And, the reason it's working or it's become so popular is because it's essentially a calorie deficit. Like you're shortening the amount of time you're eating food. So while it works great for digestion and autophagy and like longevity, long-term, we're not using it for that, right? Like most women are not using it for that. They're using it to eat less. And when they're already sometimes eating less, that's just causing more of a stress response on the body, more blood sugar dysregulation sometimes. And I've seen when we actually incorporate breakfast and we incorporate stopping the fasting, like they will actually start getting results because cortisol can probably come down. We're being fed. we're being fed, cravings go away. It kind of helps. You might have a different opinion, but I don't love it in women.
Yeah, I've heard both opinions, and it does certainly seem to be very individual, obviously, first of all, but second of all, it does seem to be more problematic with women because we just have a different fat distribution, a different hormone profile, and the hormones are also fat and cholesterol based. So it also affects our moods a lot and our neurotransmitters. So I definitely see the benefits of fasting as far as what you mentioned, plus, just giving the body a rest also to focus on digestion, let's say, because most of us aren't taking enough breaks in between meals to let our digestive system rest. So I think it's really important for that. And also to make sure there's enough of a window, like during the nighttime when our organs can also, like the liver, for example, restores itself and the normal cycles that have to go on in a fasting state. So, I see the benefits, but personally, having tried it at different points in my life, sometimes it works for me and sometimes it doesn't. So, you just have to kind of tune in.
I will say, I think if women wanted to do it or try it, like the typical overnight or even 10 to 12 hours of fasting can sometimes be sufficient. Like we don't need to do the 16-8, right? Like the really extreme window of intermittent fasting. You could do shorter windows, like you said, while you're sleeping at night, like that is fine. 7 to 7 or 8 to 8, whatever. But not like the really extreme cases. I don't know if it's necessary.
Yeah, I agree. I think 12 hours is a really good time for your system to decompress and enjoy the benefits of that fasted state. So I also wanted to touch on, you said stress, right, is something that you track and monitor, and that can make a huge difference. So what, in your opinion, is like something that really contributes to stress, or something that you've found is really helpful for dealing with stress?
So when we get on consult calls with clients, I always ask them to rate their stress levels from 1 to 10 for a typical day. Like how stressed do you feel on a typical day? 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. And I get like the ones who say like a 2 or a 1 to 4. I was like, teach me, you're not a business owner. Like you can tell. And then, other ones will be like, I consider high, like 7 to 10, right? That range. And so that's just their perceived level of stress. And that's work, kids, that's all of that stuff. But then we get into how much are you actually eating per day, which under eating, which I've said a lot already, is a big stressor on the body. Overtraining, which we get a lot, is a big stressor on the body. And especially doing like high intensity interval training 5 days a week, 4 days, like all of that is very stressful on the body. Not enough sleep, fasting, all of that can be super stressful. So when that all happens, we kind of have to, we have to balance that stress. We have to mitigate that stress in some way. And that means like for work-life balance stress, walks in nature, going outside in the sunshine, meditation, breath work, yoga, something creative that you like doing, like painting or music or something like that, right? Like whatever's your outlet. Like I'm not going to make anyone journal if they don't love to write. So finding an outlet for them that way. And then possibly bringing their food up, taking the exercise down, getting more sleep, more rest days, which sounds counterintuitive to them at the time. They're like, you want me to do what? To lose weight? What? But stress is ultimately why we came into the metabolic model, is because of how it all affects like the different axes in the body and what people aren't talking about.
Yeah. And this also relates to how, in general, like the system that we're part of just really values productivity and the patriarchy and all these things.
Go. Yeah.
What brings us value as human beings, but we forget to like enjoy the time that we have, and we're just always focused on the next goal, rather than just kind of enjoying the moment and smelling the roses. And that's what's missing.
100%. Yes.
Yeah, so I love that you incorporate that approach as well. And so my last question to you, I've really enjoyed the conversation that we've been having. The last question is really about your business and how you structured it. So you mentioned that you work with other coaches. So you're the CEO and founder. So how did you build out your beautiful website, and what do you have going on as far as your business?
Website, my easy answer is I hired someone to do it.
Like
that was an investment at the time to do, and I actually want to redo it. So just thinking about all that is crazy. But to be honest, again, like I invested in myself and into other business coaches who kind of cleaned up my services and my streamline. I got everything more efficient, my check-in processes, like my operating procedures. So I had someone helping, like coaching me on the back end on how to make this more efficient. And at the time, I think I said, like, I was doing pharmacy and this at the same time with 45 clients. And I was like, I can't take on anymore. Like, we're growing. I need another coach. So I hired another coach, and then I hired another coach. And then my goal is to, I'm actually hiring right now. So if you're listening and you're a health coach or a dietitian, we're hiring. No, but in all reality, like I just want to grow and help as many people as we can. And that just includes, like, I'm no longer, it's kind of sad, I don't take on clients anymore at the moment, because running the business, as you know, is a full-time gig, and I don't want to take away time from clients that they deserve either. So that's what the assistant coaches are for. And I always joke, like, I'm a little type A. So if I trust them with like the clients, right, with my babies, they're good. Like they're good girls.
Love it. Well, it sounds like you've created a very sustainable business model, and I love, what you're doing and the type of impact that you're having, and also like recognizing that it took work, perseverance, and bravery also, to kind of just step out and trust that it will all work out. And, I wish you lots of success in the future. So let's jump into our rapid fire round. I just have a couple of questions here. So what would be the number one thing somebody could do to improve their quality of life right now?
I would say I always have a stereotypical answer. It's supposed to be rapid. Honestly, drink water. Like, everyone's dehydrated. I will say increase your water to at least like half your body weight in ounces plus 20 more ounces. If you can hit a gallon, great. But water is going to, I was like movement, but then I'm like, you know what? Water, like people need water.
All right, I'll accept 2 answers. So water and movement, love it. Number 2, what is your favorite meal? Like, describe your perfect meal.
Ooh, I love steak. So I love a good steak, potatoes, and like sauteed asparagus or something like that. Like it's not even anything crazy. I love a good steak and potatoes.
Love it, love it. Yeah. Potatoes are definitely part of my heritage and one of my favorite things to eat. And you can eat it in like a ton of different ways. So I love it too. And now I've become a fan of like sweet potatoes too, even though they're not related, but
Yeah.
they both have the word potato in it. So it works. But to piggyback off your first answer and allow you to talk a little bit more about movement, why don't you also tell us like your all-time favorite exercise that everybody should be doing?
Ooh, exercise, like one movement?
One exercise if you had to choose, and let's say for women.
Deadlifts.
I have never done one in my life.
Deadlifts. Honestly, if you're going to do one movement, make it a compound exercise. And a deadlift is a compound exercise because not only are you working like your lats and your upper body to stabilize the bar, your core and your midsection you're holding tight so you can lift the weight. It works your hamstrings and your glutes. And that's what ladies want. Deadlifts.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. You always want to make sure your big muscle groups are engaged, and you've pretty much named all of them. So that was a really tough question, but I think you nailed it. So again, thank you so much, Ashley, for coming on, telling us about your health journey, your business journey, and also your views and how you work with clients to get them amazing results. I'm really happy that you came on to share your wisdom. So my last question for you would be, how can people get in touch with you?
Ooh, okay. So you can visit the website it's TeamBDN Coaching now, teambdncoaching.com. Or the best way to get in touch with me physically is Instagram at dr.dwyer. Send me a message. I don't really I answer everything. I'm very responsive. I love Instagram. We can be friends. So Instagram is the best way.
Great. So I'll have that in the show notes. And you mentioned that you have a podcast. What's the name of it?
The name is Health Unscripted. So a little play on pharmacy words there. It's on Apple and Spotify. I am literally just now getting back into it. I recorded my first episode back last week. I plan on doing another one this week. I'm very excited. It's like, unlike this, which I love and I want to get into, they're like 15 to 20-minute digestible episodes just to do real quick and go off on a walk.
Yeah, I love that style as well. So I'm excited to follow your podcast and share it with our listeners. And by the time this airs, yours will be probably up and running already. So I'm happy to get that going. All right. Well, thank you again, Ashley, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. It was so great.
Bye. Bye.